We're going to go on Daf Mesechtes Bava Kama Daf Kofta Zayin. It begins 6 lines down at the top of the Yomid, where the Gemara continues to explain the halacha of our previous Mishnah, where the guy saves someone else's things. So he said that really you only get ein le'el eschara, but the Mishnah said im amalai, if he tells him, look, I'll save yours only if you give me mine, then he's obligated to give him what he lost, and the Gemara is going to explain why is that the case. Should correspond to Kazakh and Chesed to Daf Yomi, turns today's Daf, throughout the entire world. So discuss today's Daf are the halacha of the Mishnah that if let's say the stream floods his donkey and his friend's donkey, and his was worth 100 and his friend's worth 200, so he leaves his own, he saves his friend's. The Mishnah said only only gets the wages, he doesn't get compensated. But if he tells him I'm going to save yours and you're going to have to give me mine, then he has to give it to him. So the Gemara discusses regarding interesting case. What happens if he goes to save the guy's stuff, and actually his animal comes up on its own? What's halacha going to be? What happens if, let's say, he goes to save it and he's not able to save the guy's stuff? Does he still get compensated? Regarding a caravan that was going in the Midbar, and then the troops came and they capture, and when the guy goes and saves it, who's he saving it for? Is he saving for la'emtza? Does everyone get to share in what he saves? Or what happens if he says, I'm saving for myself, and he saves for himself? The halacha, that relates to the halacha of a worker could back out even midday. Regarding the halacha, if someone steals a field from his friend and then masikin, these extortionists take it, what's the halacha? And that relates to the halacha of doing dina de garmi. Do we educate cases of indirect cause of damage? So beginning our daf, Kofta Zayin, 6 lines down the top of the Yomid. The Mishnah said, Im Omarlai, if let's say he says to him, look, mine's worth 100, yours worth 200. I'll save yours, but you have to give me the value of mine. So then he has to give him his value. Says, why? But namely, why can't the guy whose animals were saved say, I was fooling around with you? What does that mean? Didn't we learn the Braisa? Someone's running away from jail. Now, he had a boat, a ferry, that could help him cross the river. Amalai, he tells him, look, take this dinner and take me over the river. He actually does not get so much money, because this guy's desperate, he has to get it over the river. He only gives him the wages, however much it would normally cost. So we see, because he said, I was fooling around with you. I just needed you to listen to me, but of course I'm not going to pay you that amount. Why can't they say, also I was fooling around with you, which is like, I'm going to pay you half the value of my donkey? I'm going to pay however much a worker works for. Says, no, that's not comparable to a seifa. Meaning, the Mishnah said, V'm'amalevi tells him, Tul din zeh b'scharcha, v'avidan, the meaning of the seifa of that brisa. The brisa says, if he told him, here, take this din b'scharcha for your wage of avidan, take me over the boat, then he has to pay him the full amount. That's the halacha of Mishnah. So the Gemara says, yeah, Mishnah Reish and Mishnah Seifa. What's the difference between Reish and the Seifa? Why in the Reish could he tell him I was just fooling around with you? He doesn't have to give him that amount. And then the Seifa actually says he has to give him the full amount, like we said in the Mishnah. So Amar Rabbi Bachami says, because B'tzayid hashoy l'dagim nayam. We're talking about where that this guy was a fisherman that was trapping fish from the sea. He tells him, Afsadatani kavri bezuzi, that you caused me a loss of fish worth a zuz. And that's what he's telling him, b'scharcha, that for your wages, that take a dinner for the wages that you're losing and take me over the river. Then he has to pay him the full amount. The Mishnah also, he caused him a recognizable loss because he's losing his donkey worth 100. And yes, he has to pay him the full amount. And he cannot just tell him a shati in the book that was fooling around with you. The Mishnah said, let's say the river was flooding and it took out his donkey and his friend's donkey. And we said, his donkey was worth 100, that guy's worth 200. And he said, we said these halachas. So the Gemara wonders, why do we have to have all these cases? We're talking about a barrel of honey and wine, and we spoke about a case with a donkey and the other guy's donkey. So the Gemara says, no, we had to say, because the Yashmani Kamei said, we only said the first case with the barrel of honey. Over there, where the guy was explicit, and he said, look, I'll save it to you, but you got to pay me back my wine. So you have to make kuli, then he has to pay him for the full value of his wine. Because the guy's actively pouring out his wine because they saved the guy's honey. You got to compensate him. Over here, the Memela, where it's a passive thing. Both their donkeys were flooded. And Nema, I could say, in Leilaskar, no, even if he says, I'll save it only if you pay me back. No, but you didn't actively go and destroy your donkey to save my donkey. You went and saved my donkey himself. Maybe I would say only gets his wages. That's where I have to say, no, there also he gets compensated. Now, Vishman and Seif, had we only said the second case of the donkey, I would say, yeah, that's where, unspecifically, when he didn't say anything, he's only going to get the wages for saving the guy's donkey, and he's not going to get compensated for his own. Because it's something that's automatic. But the case of the ratio when he pours out his wine, he actively is pouring out his wine. I would say, even if he doesn't say, he should be compensated for pouring out his wine to save the guy's honey. So they say that, no, they're also, if he didn't say anything, you're only going to get the payment of wages. Now, the Ba'imene Rav Kan Rav. Rav Kan has the following interesting question from Rav. Yored lahatzel. If a guy goes down to save the guy's donkey, meaning with the intention that he'll get compensated for his own donkey that he's not saving. The Allah Shalem Elav, which he gets from that guy's $200 donkey, he gets $100 back. But what happens is his donkey comes out on his own. We see on the side of the road, his donkey's out. What's the halacha? Another, do we say that, he was mafkir, he made his donkey ownerless, and it was like lost. And the guy has to compensate him. That his donkey comes out on the side of the road, he's zeichen it from hefker. Or we say, no, since it came out, he doesn't have to compensate him. Somebody says, from heaven they're having compassion on him, and he has to pay him as if his donkey died. Like the Gemara brings from Rav Safra, he was going on the caravan with travelers, and Levinahu Ari, there was a lion that joined their caravan, which was protecting their animals from the wild animals and from the bandits. Now, they had to feed the lion. Kol Eila, every night, they fed one of their donkeys to the lion, and the lion ate it. When they came to Rav Safra's turn, so he gave his donkey, and the lion didn't eat it. Rav Safra went to grab a hold of it, because it was hefker, he gave it to the lion, and he merited it before anyone else did. So Amalei Rav Achim Ravina says, why did Rav Safra have to go bizaychen it? Although he made it ownerless, and that's what the Gemara is proving, that he got from hefker, that took care of his obligation. But although he made it hefker, adaita the aria afkerde. He only made hefker because of the lion. Adaita kol amal afker. He didn't make it hefker for anyone else. So even if he made it hefker, why would he have to go quickly grab it? Somebody said, you're right, Rav Safra Rav Chedem, but he only did it for an extra gain. He just didn't want people to be contesting and murmuring and saying, well, I got it first. But you're right, truthfully is, halacha would mandate that it goes back to him, and he didn't have to go out and grab it first. Now, similarly, the Gemara has a different interesting question. Rav asked from Rebbe, Yor lahatzel, what happens if someone goes down to save this other guy's stuff? He said, I won't save my donkey, but you'll compensate me for my donkey, and I'll save yours. But he wasn't successful, didn't save him. What's halacha? So when he says, bezu sheila, is a good question. But in he's only going to get his wages for working to try to save the guy's donkey. So the Gemara says from the following brisa: if someone hires a worker as getin timid base, lahevi to bring kuruv, cabbages, b'durmaskin, and quinces l'chayla to a sick person. He quickly running to the sick person, he goes and he finds he's dead, or he's already healthy. He doesn't need the quinces or the cabbage. He has to pay the full wages of how much he was charging. So you see, it doesn't make a difference if he's successful or not. So here also, when he goes to save and he doesn't end up saving, why should he not get his full compensation? Somebody says, no, midam, is it comparable? No, the agent did his agency. He was successful 100%. It's just that the person didn't need it. Here he didn't do his full agency. He was unsuccessful. And therefore that's why he's only going to get the wages as a worker, but he's not going to get his full compensation for his loss. So I'm going to learn the brisa. Continue on this theme once we introduced a caravan. If there was a caravan that was going in the desert, and there were these marauding troops that wanted to plunder and pillage this caravan of people, and they were able to appease them by saying, "Hey, we'll pay you money to keep that you shouldn't kill us." So the halacha is mechashvan lefi mammon. We evaluate the caravan of people according to their financial status, how much they have to give proportionately. And we don't calculate according to the amount by head per person. Now, but if let's say they had hired a tour guide to direct them, then they also calculate according to the amount of people, because making a mistake when you're traveling in the desert is sakanas nefashos, and therefore this is a element related to nefashos. But says the Brisa, they shouldn't change from the custom of the donkey drivers. Meaning, if the custom is that you go ahead and you're a tour guide according to the financials or according to per head, well, that's how you're going to do it based on the common custom. Now, moreover, says the Brayser, the donkey drivers could stipulate, whoever's going to lose his donkey, everyone together has to chip in and give him a different donkey. But if it's bekusya, if the guy lost it because of negligence, then they don't have to give him a donkey. If it's not through negligence, then they do give him, they all chip in and give him a donkey. Now, let's say the guy who lost the donkey says, look, give me the money, I'll watch all your donkeys. We don't listen to him because maybe he's not going to buy a donkey. And they only stipulated so that he should buy donkeys, so that he should be Meiser Nefesh to watch with them at night times from the wild animals and the bandits, but he's not going to because he's not invested. He doesn't have any skin in the game because he doesn't have a donkey. So that seems to be obvious halacha. No, it is necessary. He has another donkey. He just, what would you say? So, yeah, he's going to watch. And even if he says, look, one of them I could watch very well, but I can't watch two, and if I don't want to buy a second donkey, no, Kamashman, that's what we have to teach that they could tell him no. It's different watching for one than watching for two. If you're going to get a second one, it's hard for you to watch. For sure you're going to be Meiser Nefesh more, and therefore he can't just take the money, he has to buy another donkey. Similarly, turn about in the Braisa, if there was a boat that was going in the sea, and the waves are trying to capsize and drown the boat. So what do? They try to unload the weight of the boat that it should be able to go better with the waves. So we calculate according to the weight, to the loads. Meaning, if this guy's carrying gold and they threw 100 liter of gold, this guy who's carrying iron has to throw 100 liter of iron, which obviously is worth less, but that's according to the load because that's what we're calculating here. We just have to get the weight down. And we don't calculate according to money. When I lost already $100,000, now you lose $100,000. No, it does not work like that. But you shouldn't change from the custom or whatever, however the sailors usually do it. Now, but the sailors could stipulate, whoever loses his boat, so you have this whole fleet, that we have to go and all chip it together and get him another boat. Now, if he lost it through negligence, we don't go and give him another boat. If it was not without negligence, then we do give him another boat. Now, if let's say that sailor went to a place where boats don't go, then we don't give him another boat. Obviously, that was his negligence. No, it's necessary. The Benisan in the spring, which the rivers are very big from the melting of the snow and from the rain through the winter, so then generally, you have to be one rope's distance from the edge of the river into the water. But beyond that, you could go because it's very high waters. But Tishrei now, however, in the fall, where there's much less water over the summertime, and the boats will hit the bottom near the edge of the river, you have to be 2 ropes length away from the edge of the river, because if you want to be able to have the boat that should stay in the water, you have to go into deeper waters, which is further away. And in the spring, he went to the place where you could only go. He went in the spring, Lamakam Tishrei, to the place of where you can go in the fall, meaning in the middle of the water, and meaning to the contrary, because he has to go further to the edge in his boat, and because he went further out where there's deeper waters, so that was too strong, and that drowned him. But during the fall, you can go there because the water's lower there, up until two ropes distance. Maudim, would you say Dav should not v'azal, that he was going according to what he's just used to, and it's not considered negligence. Kamash Molat was saying that it's going to be considered as a negligence for that time of the year, and that's what we're saying, that Imam that we would not have to compensate him with a boat. Turn about Linda Braisa. Continuing on this theme. If there was a caravan of people going on in the desert, and then these bandits come and they plunder them. Now, one of the victims of this caravan goes and saves something from the terrorists. Hitzel Emtza. He saves to the middle, meaning everyone who recognizes whatever is saved by this hero could take whatever was saved. It's for the pool, not for the individual. Now, if he says, Ani Atzlasme, whatever, I'm saving myself, Hitzlasme saves for himself, because it was already taken by the bandits, and he's saving it from them. So what's the case talking about? If it was possible that the real owners from the other victims had the ability lahatzel to save, so they weren't miyayish, and even if it says he's taking for himself, he's a gazlan, because they could have saved it themselves, then the full save it namilam. So then even the save when he says he's doing it for himself should still go to the middle, not to him. And if the original owner was not able to save it, then even when he doesn't say he's doing it for himself, should also go for himself because he's getting it from hefker, because the guy was miyayish. So Amar Muhammad says, here we're talking about where they were partners, and whether they could have, or whether they could not have saved, or could go in zeh. And for example, this, when it's a loss of money, shutav chaylik, the partner has to split it, even if his friend doesn't want to. Now, shaloy das chaveiroi, that was without the awareness of his friend. Amar, he says, polig, and he holds back his portion, what this guy saved. Meaning, if he said, then polig, then he could hold on to it. If he didn't say loy palag, he cannot separate, because he did very well that he was moisei nefesh for both of their merchandise, because since he's a partner with him, that's the norm to go through the effort for the whole merchandise, and therefore that's why it makes a difference, because they're partners. Or another approach is Rav Ami says, here we're talking about by workers, where he was a laborer for the sailors, for the owners for the merchants, and we're talking about where they could not have saved it. Ukarav, now, and so what's this halacha? He's saying he's doing it for himself or not? Because he's going like Rav, because Rav says, a worker could back out of his job, even in the middle of the day. Now, as long as he doesn't back out, it's like he's working for the owner, and therefore when he saves it, it's going to go to the real owner. But when he backs out and he says, I'm saving it for myself, so then he's being zeicha from hefker, because the owner was not able to save it, and taima achrinahu. So that's a different reason. Because the chsiv says in the Torah, Kili b'nei Yisrael avadim. Hashem says, because to me the Jewish people are slaves. And not slaves to slave, and they can back him in the middle of the day, and therefore this guy's backing out when he's saying, I'm saving it for myself. A third approach of Rashi says, the truth is we're talking about a regular person, not a worker, not a partner, and we're talking about where the original owner was able to save it, but in the extreme circumstances. So, Gali Daite, he's revealing his intention, meaning when he says, I'm doing it la'atzmi for myself, and the owner hears and he's quiet, and they're not meitzur nefesh themselves, they're revealing their intention that they're being meyayish, and they're not willing to be meitzur nefesh. So then, la'atzma, it's going to go to himself. Now, however, where they could explicitly save it, not al de'atchag, then even when they hear in their sound, the guy's not going to be kind, because Mustama is not meyayish, he could save himself. But when they could only be al de'atchag, and he's not saying anything, and the guy says to himself, then he goes to himself. If it does not reveal his intention, then it's going to go. If the guy doesn't say he's doing it himself, so he thinks he's doing it as a favor to everyone, then it's going to go it's going to go whoever the real owner is. Now look at the next Mishnah, continuing on this theme of Hagoyz Lamachal, about robbing. Hagoyz L'Sodom Mechaveirei. If someone steals a field from his friend, if someone steals a field from his friend, V'natlu Masikin, and the Masikin, which Masikin are also types of mobsters, and they steal it from the Gazlan. So someone robs a field, and now these mobsters take it from him. So it depends. Imakas Medinahi, if this is a global, a statewide problem where these mobsters stole other fields, and just happens to be this guy also, his field, who he stole from someone else, then the first Gazlan, the Jew, could tell to the victim, he says, look, your field is here, go get it from them. But in Machmas Gazlan, but if, let's say, these mobsters specifically stole it because of the Gazlan, which the Gemara is going to explain, then the Gazlan has to go and compensate the original owner. So Amram Nachman Yitzchak says, Mandatani Masikin, just for the Girsa, we said Masikin, whoever has the Girsa Masikin Lemishtabish is not mistaken. Mandatani Matzikin with a Tzadi, Lemishtabish is also not an error. Because the Gemara explains, Mandatani Matzikin Lemishtabish, if you say the Girsa Matzikin, it's not an error, because the Chesivit says the Pasuk in Devarim, B'motzer in the siege, or B'motzik, and with oppression. So you think Matzikin is an appropriate word for the guy who oppresses and will take away the field from the Gazlan. Manatun masikin with a samach lemishtab is also not an error. The Chesed says the previous pasuk actually, Yerish hatzalotzal, the tzalotzal will inherit, which tzalotzal is actually a type of locust, but the locust is like a gazan because it eats people's grain. What's the targum? Yechsanine saka. So that's the word masikin that we see that it's also that they will inherit the tzalotzal, which is a type of a gezelam. So either way, the girsa is matzikin and masikin is appropriate girsa. Now the Mishnah said, these masikin took it away. They said, im mach masagazlan, if they specifically took away this piece of property, these mobsters, because of the guy who stole it from that original victim, then that gazlan has to compensate. So Gemara said, hey, what's the case? Toma. If it's talking about where they oppressed specifically his field, and they didn't go and take all the lands, so that we already know as an inference from the first halakha of the Mishnah. If it's a statewide thing that they're stealing everyone's fields, fine. But the inference was if not. So what do I need specifically to say if they only did it because of the gazlan? That's inferred already from the ratio. So it's necessary. We're talking about meaning that the truth is, this guy did not steal it himself. He heard from the king, from the government, that they want to steal fields. He showed them, here, take this guy's property, which as the bottom Taisa explains, that he's chayv because of dina de garmei, because indirect cause of damage, where he went and he told, give this guy's field. That's the case where we're saying that, you're right, the inference of when he stole and then they took from him and he's the only one, of course he can be chayv, that's inference from the ratio. Right, totally different case. He didn't steal actually. He so to speak stole by getting the masikin. He went and told them, here, take this guy's field. Another version, that non-Jews had robbed it. Then said to him, and they told him that show your land, and he showed this field that he stole together, and they took it. So you're right, it wasn't only the victim's field. It was together with his own fields, but he also showed when it's his fields, he showed this guy's fields also. And the Gemara brings a story, there's a certain person that showed a kari dechitid be'Resh Galusa on the pile of wheat of the household of the Resh Galusa, and to showing them where it is. Also coming to Rav Nachman, he came from Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman obligated him to pay. So Rabbi Yosef Rav Huna Bar Chia. Rabbi Yosef was sitting behind Rav Huna Bar Chia. Rabbi Yosef Rav Huna Bar Chia came in Rav Nachman. Rav Huna Bar Chia was sitting in front of Rav Nachman. So I'm like Rav Huna Bar Chia, Rav Nachman. So Rav Huna Bar Chia, who was sitting in front of Rav Yosef, and he was sitting and he was facing Rav Nachman. He said to Rav Nachman, Dinar Knasa. This halacha that you're obligating him to pay, is that judgment for this dina de garmi that he pointed to, that this is where this guy's stuff are, or is that a penalty? He says, Masnin, it's a Mishnah. We learned this halacha in our Mishnah. It's a din. It says, Im machmas a gazlan. If they're taking his field because of the gazlan, chayav lamed loisadeh. He has to compensate him a field. And we explained the achvach buya. We're talking about where he just pointed out where it is. So we see that it's a din. Now, busted nothing after Rav Nachman left. Rabbi Yosef, who was behind, said Rav Huna Bar Chia, who was in front of him, and say, what's the difference here as we continue about idina if it's a judgment or a penalty? Who cares? He has to pay. He says, no, the difference is idina if it's halacha that a meiser, an informant, has to pay, which that's all he did. He didn't really steal, according to what we're interpreting. It says he just pointed out. So you could learn out from that, from this story of Nachman, to other garmi of indirect cause of nizakin in general, that you could hold a person liable. But he cannot say if it's a penalty that Rav Nachman made because this guy was accustomed to doing this, which rabbis are allowed to do such a penalty, then we wouldn't be able to learn out. You cannot learn from Knasa, and as the Gemara continues on the next daf, to ask how do we know that idea, but you cannot learn from Knasa, and therefore that's always important for me to know if this was a grama, if this was a knas, or if this was a din. Thank you to any time for hosting us.